this is Bubbles. Wait, what? No.
The world often views Jamie Dornan through the polished prism of red carpets, designer suits, and camera flashes that seem to fall in love with him every time he steps into their glow, casting him as the effortlessly charming figure whose name spawns headlines and whose smile adorns magazine covers. Yet behind that curated sheen, beyond the applause and the global fascination, exists another far quieter realm, one that breathes in gentler rhythms. And at the center of that world stands Amelia Warner, a woman who built a life not from fame or performance but from patience, creativity, and a love that whispers instead of roars, a love that has never required an audience to feel real. People often imagine that sharing life with a film star is the height of glamour, the travel, the premieres, the luxury that comes as part of the cinematic myth. But when Amelia was once asked what it was truly like to marry one of Hollywood's most coveted men, she offered a small smile, soft but grounded, and replied, "It's not like the movies," a sentence that carried both warmth and weight because behind the polished public facade lie days shaped by distance, weeks marked by silence, and the constant murmur of public attention that never entirely retreats. When Amelia first crossed paths with Jamie, neither of them was chasing stardom. She had already carved a name as a musician and actress, a woman with a poetic inner world who preferred writing songs to speaking more than necessary, while Jamie was still discovering his own footing. Modeling, auditioning, dreaming, trying to understand what place he wanted to claim in an industry that often values beauty before talent. Their connection did not strike with cinematic thunder. It arrived like something familiar, quiet, almost ordinary. The kind of bond that forms not through spectacle but through recognition, through the subtle understanding of each other's silences and the gentle safety found in them. But when 50 Shades of Grey erupted into a global phenomenon, everything shifted with a force neither of them could have predicted. Jamie's name became international currency, plastered across billboards, screens, and news feeds, transforming him into a symbol of fantasy and desire. And with that sudden fame came tidal waves of curiosity crashing into the most private corners of his life. Amelia found herself thrust into a spotlight she had never requested, labeled, judged, compared, sometimes mocked by strangers who felt entitled to examine her marriage as though it were public property. There were whispers questioning whether she was jealous, whether she resented the attention, whether she felt overshadowed by the fictional world that had catapulted Jamie into superstardom. Yet Amelia chose silence, not silence born of fragility, but silence rooted in strength, a refusal to let narratives crafted by tabloids rewrite the truth of her life. While the world speculated, Amelia stayed home composing music, raising their daughters, and tending to the sanctuary she built where fame had no permission to intrude. Her art remained delicate, soulful, and sincere, an embodiment of her belief that stories do not need to be loud to matter, that the quietest voices are often the ones that endure. And perhaps the true essence of her life with Jamie is found precisely in that contrast. The whirlwind of his public existence spinning beside the stillness she chooses, a balance that turns chaos into something livable. Friends close to them often describe Amelia as the anchor in Jamie's constantly shifting life, the steady weight beneath his feet when everything else slips into motion. And when Jamie once spoke about their dynamic, he said, "She gives me perspective. I go out into madness and she brings me back to something real. A rare sort of partnership built not upon attention but understanding, not appearance but sincerity." Yet even bonds strengthened by love and mutual respect are tested by fame's gravity. The prolonged separations, the relentless demands of a profession where authenticity is constantly balancing against expectation. All of these strain even the strongest foundations. There were moments when Amelia wondered about the cost of the life they were living, the privacy surrendered, the identity softened by association, the way her own creative work was often overshadowed by being Jamie Dornan's wife, in headlines that rarely bothered to acknowledge she was an artist long before she was anyone's partner. But through every challenge, she resisted allowing public perception to define her marriage. Instead, she chose to let small, genuine moments shape the truth. Reading bedtime stories to their daughters, sharing laughter in the kitchen over late-night cups of tea, playing softly on the piano while Jamie was thousands of miles away filming, moments stitched together to form a life more meaningful than anything projected onto a cinema screen. Her resilience turned into its own quiet rebellion. In a culture obsessed with visibility, Amelia's decision to remain unseen, to choose privacy over performance, became her form of power. She carved out a life where her worth was not measured in public approval, where creativity flowed without the need for external validation, where family, art, and groundedness mattered more than any headline. And Jamie, for all the noise surrounding him, deeply valued that grounding presence. Colleagues often noted how he returned from filming calmer, more centered, as though stepping back into Amelia's world allowed him to shed the characters, the pressure, the constant eyes upon him. Even in interviews, he spoke with unguarded affection about her influence. How she reminded him that real life exists outside the machinery of fame, how her quiet strength shaped the stability of their home, how their daughters learned from her gentleness and tenacity. Their relationship, like any long partnership, has weathered storms, patched fractures, and grown through seasons where attention felt overwhelming, but the foundation that originally connected them, their shared understanding of stillness, remains intact. In many ways, their story is far from the romanticized narrative people expect from celebrity couples. It is softer, less dramatic, more ordinary, and therefore more real. It is the story of two people who chose each other again and again, not because of glamour but because of truth. Amelia's life is a reminder that strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, creates, nurtures, endures. It is a reminder that love can thrive not in the spotlight but in the spaces where no one is watching, that the truest partnerships are not the ones that glitter on magazine covers but the ones that survive the unglamorous days. Jet lag, loneliness, misunderstandings, the emotional labor of balancing public and private worlds. And in that sense, Amelia Warner did not simply marry Jamie Dornan. She shaped the emotional architecture of the life they share, giving it structure, softness, and meaning beyond fame. Her quiet defiance in a world that demands visibility has become her legacy. And in the end, it is not the noise of Hollywood that defines her, but the calm she chose and the love she continues to protect.
Every day when the world is sad right now, and there's only so much you can do to help yourself, but even those little...
And perhaps that is precisely what makes Amelia Warner's story so compelling, because she represents the quiet beauty of what lingers behind the shimmering veil of glamour, the humanity that fame so effortlessly obscures, the truth that exists beyond curated photographs and flawless red carpet moments. She reminds people that the most luminous lives often contain shadows, that the most celebrated faces still seek comfort in the unremarkable corners of home, that love, in its most enduring form, grows not through spectacle but through soft, consistent presence. When she finally decided to speak a little more openly about her life with Jamie Dornan, it was not with the intention of correcting the record, nor to satisfy the curiosity of fans or journalists who had, for years, tried to define her through the lens of his fame. Instead, she wanted to gently reaffirm that glamour does not equate to happiness, that perfection is rarely real, and that even those who seem to have everything still wrestle with the pressures, contradictions, and emotional negotiations that accompany public life. People think glamour is happiness, she said once, her voice almost a whisper of truth. But it's not always that way. And in that simple sentence one can feel the weight of the years she has spent balancing light and shadow, applause and silence, visibility and invisibility. It is not a confession of sadness, quite the opposite. It is an acknowledgement of the choices that shape a life shared with someone constantly watched by the world. The choice to stay grounded, to hold fiercely to what is sacred, to love quietly even when the world demands performance. Because behind every immaculate photograph of Jamie Dornan, behind every premiere and interview, there is Amelia. Not standing in his shadow, but beside him, unseen by choice, yet utterly essential to the life he returns to once the cameras stop. And perhaps that is the real story, the one the world often forgets to tell. Not the fairy tale version of fame, but the simple, resilient love that endures beneath it. When Amelia chose to speak about her life with Jamie for the first time in a genuinely open way, the moment itself was soft, unassuming, very much like her. Sitting in a quiet room bathed in sunlight filtering through the window, she did not recount dramatic tales or reveal scandal. Instead, She spoke of small, ordinary moments, the ones that truly define a relationship. "The world sees Jamie as this larger-than-life figure," she said gently. "But at home, he's just a husband and a dad who forgets where he left his keys." And in that tiny slice of honesty, the myth collapses and the human emerges. Their lives, to outsiders, seem extraordinary. Film premieres, award shows, magazine covers, international travel. But Amelia explained that the most precious parts are the moments no one sees. The mornings when Jamie makes breakfast after returning from filming abroad. The evenings when she hums softly at the piano while working on new compositions. The way their daughters dart between them, turning an ordinary Tuesday into a kind of beautiful, chaotic symphony of family life. These are the moments they live for, the ones that do not appear in headlines yet sustain the foundation of their marriage. Jamie himself has often spoken about how Amelia's calmness transformed his life. For a man constantly shifting between film sets, stepping in and out of characters, navigating interviews, expectations, and pressure, her presence became a sanctuary, an emotional home that he could return to no matter how turbulent his professional world became. "She keeps me tethered to who I really am," he once admitted, acknowledging that without her grounding influence, he might have lost himself in the noise, in the momentum that sweeps so many actors into the exhausting cycle of needing to be everything for everyone, because the noise is not simply publicity or fame. It is the burden of perfection, the constant requirement to perform not just on screen but in life, to smile at the right moments, to appear confident even when tired, to answer questions with grace even when feeling overwhelmed. Yet in the home Amelia built, imperfection is welcomed, humanity is allowed, and Jamie can simply exist, flawed, real, loved. But Amelia's strength, her quiet resilience, did not come effortlessly. It was earned over years of learning how to live with absence, how to navigate the strange paradox of being married to someone whose face is everywhere while their physical presence is often miles away. In the early years of their marriage, she learned the rhythm of loneliness that accompanies supporting a partner who belongs partly to the world, a partner whose career demands emotional labor and patience. She faced the challenge of maintaining her own identity while the public painted her solely as Jamie Dornan's wife, a label that ignored her artistry, her individuality, her achievements. Yet rather than allowing bitterness or insecurity to settle, she retreated into her music, into motherhood, into creating a life that felt meaningful regardless of the world's gaze. Her compositions became emotional maps of her lived experience. Gentle, melancholic, hopeful. They carried the fingerprints of a woman who loves deeply, who feels deeply, and who pours the unspoken parts of her life into sound. "Music is where I process what I can't say out loud," she admitted once. And perhaps that is why her work feels intimate, like a quiet room filled with soft truths. Their marriage, by Hollywood standards, is almost too quiet. No scandals, no high-profile controversies, no dramatic separations or reunions. Instead, it is built on an unglamorous but unshakable foundation of trust, humor, routine, and a shared desire for normalcy. Jamie has said that Amelia taught him to be present, not just as an actor, but as a partner, as a father, as a man who understands that the truest parts of life take place outside of the limelight. When he returns from filming, he leaves his characters at the door and steps back into the role that matters most, being himself again. And Amelia, in her understated grace, never attempts to compete with his world. She does not need to. Her power lies in knowing who she is, an artist, a mother, a woman with a strong internal compass whose happiness does not hinge on visibility. In a culture that glorifies constant exposure, her silence becomes a statement of autonomy, a declaration that you can live close to the public eye and still belong entirely to yourself. What makes their story resonant is not the glamour but the grounding. It is the way they remind people that love at its strongest does not need to be performed. It does not require cinematic gestures or public declarations. It lives in the small, unfiltered interactions. Shared laughter over burnt toast, whispered conversations before bed, the comfort of holding hands when no one is watching, the simple reassurance of saying, "I'm home," and meaning it. Jamie once said that Amelia is his greatest mirror, the person who reflects back the truest version of himself, the one not shaped by directors, scripts, or expectations. And she, in turn, finds beauty in the ordinary rhythms of their life together, in the parts the world never sees but that form the essence of who they are as a couple. It is a balance of fame and normality, light and quiet, spectacle and simplicity. A balance that only works because they make the deliberate choice to protect what is real. At the end of the interview, where Amelia spoke openly about love, she smiled when asked what she had learned over the years. That it's not about how perfect you look together, she said softly. It's about how real you are when no one else is looking. And perhaps, script, no director, no audience. Just two people who choose each other again and again, through chaos and calm, through spotlight and silence. And in the end, that is the most beautiful kind of story, not one designed to dazzle or impress, but one built quietly, consistently, lovingly, lived rather than performed. Amelia Warner's quiet, steady presence has always stood in gentle contrast to the bright, occasionally overwhelming world that surrounds Jamie Dornan, and perhaps that contrast is exactly what makes their story resonate so deeply, because behind every polished red carpet photograph, behind every interview where Jamie is celebrated as a larger-than-life figure, there exists a small, private universe built almost entirely on ordinary moments that the world never sees. A universe Amelia has, nurtured with patience, warmth, and an instinctive understanding that real love is rarely loud. To most people, their life appears drenched in glamour. Premieres, travel, designer suits. But Amelia has always known that glamour is merely a costume, something worn briefly before being set aside. The truth, as she once said, is that people think glamour is happiness, but it's not always that way. A sentence that carries the weight of years spent balancing the brightness of Jamie's fame with the quiet demands of their home. When she speaks about their relationship, she does not describe dramatic gestures or cinematic romance. Instead, she describes the simple, grounding rituals that hold them together. The mornings when Jamie, home from filming and still half jet-lagged, makes breakfast for their daughters. The afternoons when she hums softly at the piano, shaping melodies out of the emotions she finds difficult to express aloud. The evenings when they sit on the sofa, exhausted but content, the noise of the world finally fading. Jamie has often admitted that for someone constantly moving between characters and locations, Amelia became the place where he could finally stop performing, the person who brought him back to himself when the pressure of fame pushed him too far from who he wanted to be. "She keeps me tethered to who I really am," he once said, and his words reveal a truth that is easy to overlook. That even the most admired actors need somewhere to rest, someone who sees not the public figure but the flawed, tender, ordinary person beneath. But Amelia's strength didn't emerge from ease. It was forged through the early years of their marriage when she learned how to navigate the strange rhythm of his absences, how to stay anchored while the world pulled